Hi, and welcome to this section of the Algebra Word Problem Tutor. And in this section, we're going to have word problems that deal with averages. Now, don't forget what an average is. I think you all know. But an average is when you have 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers, however many numbers you have. The average of those numbers is, in words, it's just kind of like a middle-of-the-road number. You kind of pick the middle-of-the-road number that's representative of the whole group. Okay? And the way you do that is you add up the numbers and you divide by the number of numbers you have, and that's the average number. So this section is going to deal with averages, and you'll have to use that fact. You'll have to use the definition of the average to solve these kinds of problems. So let's just dive into it. The first problem is this. On an exam, a class exam, Jason scores a 97, a grade of 97. Barbara scores an 88, and Jeremy scores a 91. What is the average grade? Okay, so we'll just use our definition. The average, okay, is the sum of the grades divided by the number. So if Jason scores a 97 and Barbara scores an 88 and Jeremy scores a 91, you just add them up and you divide by 3, and that's the average. Okay, when you do this math on the top, you get 276 divided by 3. So the average is 92. Okay, the average is 92. Okay, so that's the definition of an average, and that's why I kind of started out this section with this kinds of problems, so that you can see all you have to do is add the 3 grades together, or the 3 digits. You can divide by the number, and that will give you the average. And notice that this average is kind of like a middle of the road. That's what an average means. 97 is the highest, 91 is the minimum, 92 is, it's not necessarily going to be in the middle of these two numbers, but you see you got an 88 in here that kind of factors in pulling it down a little bit, so the average is a 92. Okay? Let's go on to something a little bit more challenging. A teacher sets a goal for the class average of 90 on a test. In a class of 10 students, 5 students score an 88, 4 students score an 89. What must the remaining score be in order to reach the goal? Can it be done? That's the other question. So let's read it one more time. There's a class goal of 90 on the test, an average of 90. Out of 10 people, 5 of them score an 88, 4 of them score an 89. What is the last person, what must he score to raise the average up to the goal, and can this actually be done? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use our definition of an average again. There's 10 students in the class, and 5 of them score an 88. So what you have is 88 plus 88 plus 88 plus 88 plus 88. That's 5 students scoring an 88, and 4 of them score an 89. 89 plus 89 plus 89 plus 89. Okay? 5 scoring 88, 4 scoring 89. There's one more guy in here. We do not know what he scores, so he will be called X because that's what we're solving for. And you're dividing by 10. And this is going to give you the average. Okay? And we want to see what this value of X must be. Okay? And don't forget, our goal here is to make the average equal to 90. That's what we want to do. So let's add up the stuff on the top. 88 plus 88, blah, 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 all the way up through 89 gives you 796. That's what all these numbers added up together are, plus X divided by 10, and the goal is 90. That's what we want to do. So we're trying to solve for X. Here's what everybody else did. Here's the total number of the people in the class. X is our final grade. We don't know what it is, and we know we want to equal 90. Okay? So how do we solve this? Well, you have a big fraction here. First thing we want to do is get this 10 over here. We do that by multiplying both sides by 10. So 796 plus X is equal to 900, because 90 times 10 is 900. On the left, it goes away because 10 divided by 10, if you were to multiply it out, is just going to give you 1. Okay? So then X is equal to 900 minus 796. So then X is going to be equal to 104. So if somebody in the class could score 104, it would raise the average up to a 90, which was the goal. But presumably speaking, since there's no bonus on this test, there's no way to get 104. So the second part of the question was, can it be done? No, it cannot be done. unless somehow he gets bonus points, which we're assuming there aren't any bonus points on the test. So if these guys get these grades here, there is no way that that last person can raise the average high enough to matter, to reach the goal. Okay? Now this is an interesting problem coming up next. Listen to this. The average of 6 numbers is 20. If we remove one number, the average of the remaining numbers is 15. What number was removed? Okay? Let's read it one more time. You have 6 numbers, and the average of these 6 numbers is 20. You take one number out, throw it away. Okay? The average of the remaining numbers is 15. What number was removed? What number was removed? So the way to go about this is kind of a tricky problem to know what to do first. So we just write down what we know. The average of 6 numbers is 20. We don't know what the 6 numbers are. Okay, we don't have any idea what the numbers are, so we're not even going to pretend to know. So what I'm going to put up here is the sum of 6 numbers divided by 6. The sum of 6 numbers divided by 6 is 20. Because we said the average of the first 6 numbers was 20. Okay? We take one number out, throw it away. Then the second fact that we have is the sum of 5 numbers. Again, we have to divide by 5 because we're taking an average here, is equal to 15. Now what it wants to do is it wants us to tell it what number did we take out. But that seems like a really hard thing to do because we don't even know what these numbers were to begin with. We certainly don't know what these numbers are because we're taking one out, throwing it away, but we never knew what numbers we had to start with. So how do we proceed? Well, I think you'll see right away where I'm going with this, but you can use this fact as follows. The sum of 6 numbers is equal to 6. We're just going to multiply. This is an equation here. We're going to multiply both sides by 6. 6 times 20 gives you 120. Okay? And we're going to do the same thing with this one. The sum of the 5 numbers, and we're just going to multiply 5 times 15 to get this by itself. 5 times 15 is going to give you 75. Okay, so we've used these facts that we were given to figure out what the sum of the 6 numbers were and what the sum of the 5 numbers were. So if we subtract these two things, then the difference between them must be the missing number, right? Because we know if we add up all 6 numbers what this equals to, and we know if we add the remaining 5 numbers what that's equal to. If we subtract these two things, we should get the answer. Sum of 6 numbers minus sum of 5 numbers is what we're trying to find. Wouldn't just call it X, that's the missing number, okay? Sum of the 6 numbers is 120 minus 75 is the 5 numbers. And when you do that, you will get 45. So the missing number is equal to 45. Now this was a tricky problem because it doesn't look like you have enough information to proceed. This is a great example of a problem that you need to write down what you know and then from there move on. We knew the average of the first 6 numbers was 20. We knew the average of the remaining 5 was 15. We used this information to find out what the sum of the 6 numbers was and the sum of the 5 numbers was, and we subtracted them to find the missing number that we threw away. Okay, our last problem in this section is going to be as follows. There are 5 students in class, and 4 of the 5 grades in the class are as follows: 72, 83, 85, and 90. 4 of the 5 grades. If the class average of all 5 students is 72, and the student with the highest grade drops the class, what is the average of the remaining 4 students? So this is a problem that's kind of tricky on different levels. First thing is we know there are 5 kids in the class, but we're only given 4 grades. Okay? And we're given the class average of all 5 kids, even though we don't have all 5 grades, and we're told that if the highest grade drops the class for whatever crazy reason, he just gets sick and has to drop out from the class, then the average of the 4 remaining grades is what we're trying to find. What's the average of the 4 remaining grades? Okay, so what we have to do is we have to dive into it. What we know is we have 4 grades to begin with: 72, 83, 85, and 90. Okay? And we know from the problem that the average of all 5 students was 72. So it's 72 plus 83 plus 85 plus 90 plus some mystery grade X, who knows what it is, dividing by 5 because it's 5 grades. The average of this is 72. Okay, that's what we know. And we know that eventually the highest grade drops the class, and we're trying to find what the average of the class is after the highest guy drops the grade. But notice here that even with this information here, we have enough information to find out what the missing grade is. We know that the average of all of these grades is going to be equal to 72, so let's find that, okay? When you add up these numbers, you will get 330 plus x over 5 is equal to 72, okay? Solving for x, we want to multiply both sides by 5, so we get 330 plus x is equal to 72 times 5, which is 360, okay? And then solving for x, we're going to subtract 330 from both sides. Okay, it disappears from the left, and on the right you have 30. Okay? So the missing grade was a pretty poor student. He got a 30. And we got that because we know what 4 of the 5 grades were, and we know what the average is. Okay? So here, the final list of grades also has 30 in it. That's the other guy. Okay? But that's not actually what we were asked to find. What we're told is if the highest grade drops the class, what does the average drop to? Well, the highest grade in the class, now that you found this final grade, you know that the highest grade was this one, 90. So if we drop him from the list, what does the class average become? So let's just go do 72 plus 83 plus 85. 90 dropped the class, so we're going to go ahead and just put 30 in here because he's the lowest grade. And we're going to average these in 4 grades because the other guy dropped the class. What does this equal? When you add everything up on the top, you'll get 270 divided by 4. So the class average drops to 67.5. So you can see that this guy that made the highest grade was really helping out the class average quite a bit, because this yo-yo got a 30 and he was dragging down the average. Once you get rid of the highest grade in the class, then the average plummets pretty significantly. Okay, so just to kind of recap here, you had 4 of the 5 kids. You knew what the average was, which was a 72. That was enough information using the definition of the average to find what the final grade was, which was a 30. And then also, once we eject the highest guy from the class, then the average of the remaining guys here divided by 4 gives you the average of 67.5. So in this section, it's really just a matter of knowing what the average is. It's just you add up the numbers that you're dealing with, and you divide by the total number that you have, and using that through various problems and applying it to grades or whatever. Averages are really important in real life. You use them in class and grades and science and everything else. So it's very important to understand the definition of what the average actually is.